What a lovely thing a rose is. There is nothing in which deduction is so necessary as in religion. It can be built up as an exact science by the reasoner. Our highest assurance of the goodness of Providence seems to me to rest in the flowers. It is only goodness which gives extras. And so I say again, we have much to hope from the flowers.
And so one can accept that it all emanates from a chance system or an absolute, or one can say, no, I wouldn't assert that. And then I would ask you, well, what is the foundation from which everything stems or absolute? Well, it's going to be unknown to you. So if it's unknown, then what the propositions that flow out of that will themselves be meaningless. Now, if you say to me the apple is on the counter, it's meaningful because you're actually in God's world, right? Because he's created a world where he's rational, and he has granted rationality because he is rational. But you see, the problem is you deem that you are rational, but that your rationality comes from ultimately non-rationality. That's not a coherent notion. Now, people try to get around that by saying rationality or sentience or cognition is an emergent property like an airplane flying. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way because you're dealing with a system of chance. But even if you set that aside and says, oh no, my system is a series of causality and laws of nature, you still wouldn't be in possession of rationality, because every mental state that you have chronologically at T1, T2, T3, and so on and so forth is the product of the previous molecular dominoes ticking off. So there would be no freedom of reasoning or choosing or evaluation. You couldn't think otherwise. So whichever way you go, whether it's a chance universe or one that's deterministic, it's going to result in the evisceration of you being rational. But you see, you will find that hard to believe because you're convinced that you're rational. And the reason why you are convinced is because that's the way God has ordained that you think at a foundational level. So your rationality only comports with the Christian worldview. It doesn't comport with your non-Christian worldview. See the problem?
Oh, indeed I do. I've seen the problem from the first time we spoke, but I just can't change my faith. I can change my opinions, maybe, but
you can. No, you can if you realize is that the system is untenable.
Maybe you're right. Maybe as I get older, I'll change my mind. I'll let you know.
Yeah. Okay.
That'd be cool though if you do change your mind.
Well, until such time, I'm going to keep reading interesting books and see what strikes me.
Well, here's the problem. Okay. The meaning and intelligibility for any given fact will be there in and of itself because it is absolute, or it's derived from the absolute. So I called an atheist show and I said, you claim you have a lack of belief in God and that you don't hold that anything is necessarily absolute. I said, if you hold that nothing's absolute, you can't have meaning or intelligibility for facts. Now, this rocket scientist, you know what he said to me? He says, that's an assertion without basis. Now, what did his rebuttal really show? His rebuttal was no rebuttal law, but a confirmation of what I said. Then facts will just simply assertions without basis, without an ultimate or an absolute. So if somebody says, no, an apple on the counter is intelligible and I don't need your God, I say, good, explain to me what an apple is. They'll say, well, an apple is this thing that it can fit in your hand. It's got red skin, sometimes yellow, and it's composed mostly of water and a cellular structure. And down at a molecular level, it's made out about various chemicals and molecular structures that work according to the principle of physics. Say, oh, so there's causality and laws of nature? Well, they have to affirm that, otherwise Apple doesn't mean anything. But they cannot account for causality and laws of nature. They will believe in these things, on irrational grounds, not rational grounds. And in order for something to be intelligible, it has to be intelligible on rational grounds, not irrational or non-rational grounds. So that we have to give an accounting of laws of nature. We have to give an accounting of continuity and uniformity. Now, merely appealing that you've never seen a deviation in certain patterns does not necessarily indicate laws of nature or uniformity. Number two, you have to presuppose uniformity and continuity to even invoke sense perception. So there's no way on rational grounds to provide for causality and uniformity of nature. And they'll say, well, they'll turn out and say, well, neither do you. Well, actually, I do. Because you see, I don't assume these things. God ordained that I think this way. There's no human being who can think that the world around them is not in terms of cause and effect. There's no human being who can reason that they're not in the atmosphere of continuity. In other words, that some things stay the same and some things change. Okay? So the bottom line is this, is any system, whatever it is, whatever worldview, that denies the Christian worldview is either directly or indirectly advancing autonomy, autonomous thinking. And autonomous thinking leads to complete incoherence. Now, the problem is unbelievers don't realize how it leads to incoherence. Because remember, they can go to the bagel shop, they can go get a cheeseburger, and they'll say, I don't need your God, okay? But that's a vacuous statement because they can't support that. How do they know they don't need God? The Bible says he upholds all things by the power of his will. Hebrews 1, Colossians 1 also states this. So when they say, I don't need your God, how do they know that? Are they making that statement on rational grounds or based upon intuition? They say, well, you haven't provided any proof. Well, when you say that you demand proof for God, you're already presupposing the non-existence of God. So how do they defend the non-existence of God? The answer is they can't.
No, I know what they'll say. Want me to tell you?
Sure.
They'll say, well, no, Duncan, you're misunderstanding. We're saying in this reality that we're in, whether it's true or it's the real reality or not, we use the things that we're given, the tools we're given, such as our sensory perception and our thinking, and we just go from there. That's our starting point for all of us, and therefore we'll look at the evidence and make a decision.
Well, wait a minute. What evidence? Evidence requires causal connections, are there?
Right. And then they'll say, well, yeah, there are causal connections as far as we know.
Okay, do you assert there are causal connections on rational or non-rational grounds?
They would say rational, probably.
Good. Then I would say good. Give me your rational deductive argument for causality.
Because this is what they're going to say, because we see it all around us.
Yeah, but that presupposes seeing things presupposes causality. You couldn't invoke seeing things if you didn't implicitly invoke causality.
Yep.
So they're begging the question.
Yeah, no, I agree, but they're going to try and say that, oh, no, but this is, we're just dealing with this reality. Like I said, they're trying to put themselves in a box and they don't want to look at the absolutes, right?
They have nowhere to go.
Yeah, but they're trying to trap themselves, including you. They're trying to do this to you as well and put you in this box of reality that they only observe. And from that, they're going to say, okay, now let's look at your evidence. Let's look at mine. My evidence is more proof.
No, here's the problem. Whatever fact they state, there's no ultimate basis for it.
Yeah, because they say, well, yeah, exactly. Because they'll say, oh, no, but when you're asking for an ultimate basis, they're going to say to you, you're trying to get out of this box I put you in.
No, you see, box doesn't mean anything in their worldview.
I agree. I totally agree with what you're saying. But I think this is how their logic in their head works.
Well, what you have to do is every fact that they stipulate, you say, how is that a fact?
Well, yeah, no, they can't. They can't. They'll say, well, no, I don't know that absolutely. It's what I believe.
What they want to do is they want to give a proximate explanation,
Right.
for facts. But it will not suffice to give a proximate explanation, because the proximate explanations are not absolute and unconditionally non-dependent in themselves. So those proximate explanations are going to need a basis. Okay?
So so I'm trying to understand here. Okay, hold on. So if I say, what you're asking me, Duncan, is for absolutes, and I'm telling you, as a human being in this reality, I cannot know anything absolutely. Then you're asking me about the real reality, and I can't prove that.
Then you can't say that you can or cannot know anything. It's a self-refuting statement.
Because, explain.
If they say, I can't know anything ultimately, then that's a contradiction to that statement, because that statement's a knowledge claim. That's stipulating a fact. I know X, I don't know X. So if you don't know anything, then you can't stipulate a fact. If I tell you I know there's money in my pocket, or I don't know there's money in my pocket, I'm stipulating two different facts. I possess knowledge, I don't possess knowledge. Okay, those are stipulating two opposite facts. So if somebody says, I don't know anything, that's a self-refuting statement, because it's a stipulation of a fact. In other words, when you present a fact,
right,
either a fact will be absolute in and of itself or not. Okay, it's the law of excluded middle. It's either A or not A. So a fact is either absolute in itself or it's not absolute. If it's not absolute, then it's dependent. It's derivative.
Oh, that's why you say cause and effect.
Yeah.
Right,
and so when they give me a fact, they say, good. Is that fact an absolute in of itself? Is it non-dependent? Did it begin to exist?
Okay, so now you're getting me. Okay, so now when I say I'm in this reality, the point is that
what does that mean? I'm in this reality. What does that mean? You're in what?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. So I'm trying to explain how they be thinking. I'm trying to argue with what they say. So if I say I'm in this reality, and you say to me, okay, but is this statement that you're saying, whatever truth claim I make, right? Even if they're not absolute in their eyes, the point is you're going to say to them, yes, but is that statement you make, is it independent or dependent upon something? So I have to turn around and say, yes, it's dependent upon something. And eventually you're going to keep taking them back to that dependency and find out, what is this dependency that you're talking about? Where is it dependent on? And you're going to, and if I say it's this reality that I don't know even if it's real, then that's why you're saying eventually the end point is something that I don't know. So then I cannot know anything.
It doesn't matter if you say at the outset, what's the basis for the fact? If they say I don't know, then the presentation of the fact is vacuous. If they give you approximate, if they give you a chain of 10 proximate explanations, and the last link is I don't know.
Right.
Then it's the same as saying I have no basis for my fact at the get-go.
Yet they want you to have basis for your facts.
They want a basis for accepting the Bible.
Right.
Okay, but when it comes for their facts, they don't want an ultimate basis. It is to say I don't have a good reason to God, that I don't have a good reason to believe in God, is in principle and implicitly to violate that very statement. Because to say I don't have a good reason to believe in God means I don't have a good reason to believe in the personal absolute. But that statement is implicitly claiming to possess the capacity to reason, and in virtue of an impersonal absolute. So what's the good reason for that? Well, the answer is they don't have one. So the very statement, I don't have a good reason to believe in God, is self-refuting.
Because atheism provides no foundation for intelligibility, they ultimately cannot provide an intelligible answer to the ultimate nature of reality for any given fact they invoke. Atheism can only provide subsurface data, information, and approximate explanations to any given fact that ultimately ends with "I don't know." "I don't know" leads to incoherence when it comes to giving something its meaning to the ultimate nature of reality for any given fact. Because atheism has been found to be incoherent and unintelligible at its very core, and contradictory as it violates its own criterion, all atheist comments will be subject to removal because of their basis of unintelligibility and incoherence. This channel is not a place for troll monkeys to sling mud to a wall, but for serious biblical considerations for serious people. God bless. Hope your day is good.